I get my coffee and I go.
Yeah, see?
You don't know the rest of the words, do you?
I do not know the words.
Vanessa,
I gotta go.
don't walk away from us tonight. Anyway, we're live. Welcome to the Guide to Movies podcast with Joe and Sean. I am Joe. He is Sean. He didn't know we were live.
That's what I get for fiddling around with my phone while we're doing it. I'm just like singing back Vanessa's part.
And also saying fiddling because you're apparently like a 73-year-old man.
It's a perfectly fine word to use.
Yeah, well, let's fiddle with this outline we have tonight because there's quite a lot to discuss. But Sean, how are you doing? Back to school, huh?
Oh, it was the second day of teaching today, and I am just like just cruising on fumes right now. It is just 100%. I think I took a nap during my dinner, which is good.
Was that what was being microwaved during your live, or?
Essentially, that was Sam's. We're on different dinner schedules because of podcasts. Podcasts, and that's it. Actually.
This is a very important evening weekly.
Yeah, exactly.
She understands.
Oh, she totally does, I think.
I think. All right. Well, we have a ton to get to. Like, it's so funny that we have had weeks where the news has been like pulling teeth. And then this week, going through what I wanted to include, I was like, oh my God, there's so much. And then during your live, you reminded me of a story that I completely forgot to post about. So I added that because that's a great story to cover. And I am so pumped for that movie. But we will get to that. But first, let's start off with movie discussions. Do we want to agree first or disagree first?
Well, I think we should just get off the most popular thing right now in Candyman.
This is a PG-13 podcast, so I'll have none of that language about, what happens in the bedroom and stuff. But
see, I don't, I mean, you push things. You put
content.
No, we're doing great with this. We're doing great. Everyone's loving us.
We're doing great. This is a great week. All right, so let's talk about Candyman. Candyman came out this past Friday. Actually did really well at the box office, comparably to other big releases during the pandemic era. I think that's how we're referring to it. I'll start because I know that I have a positive view compared to yours. I really enjoyed Candyman. It was a movie that I was not looking forward to at all. I revisited the original last week prior to going, like a day prior. And I actually ended up loving it. I thought that the acting was incredible. I loved Teyana Parris in her role. I thought she was really good. And I also love Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. He's just, I don't know what it is about him, but that man is just charismatic. Very entertaining in any role that he's taking. And one of the things I enjoyed from listening to some of the interviews during the press circuit was that he is hoping that his character of Black Manta in Aquaman 2 will have more of a mature approach to him. So I take that as like wanting to dive a little bit more into what makes him tick. Instead of kind of the not shallow, but we didn't really dive deep into it besides his father being killed by Aquaman, or not being saved, rather. So I really enjoyed it. One of the things I was impressed with was, number one, it was a 90-minute runtime, which I love. Number two, they did a lot of work in not disregarding the first film, but reinforcing the first film and actually building more into the lore that was first introduced in that one. And I really thought that was well done. For some reason, I did not see the twist coming. So spoilers, we'll probably get into this a little bit, but I did not see the twist of like who Yahya actually is coming. And I was surprised. Like when that happened, I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. And that's usually something I pick up on. But all in all, I just had a really good time with it. I'm going to forget the actor's name, which is routine on this podcast, but the actor that played the brother in this.
Absolutely 100% amazing.
He was perfect in that role.
Got 3 names. I mentioned him in my review, but his name is escaping me right now.
Nathan Stewart Jarrett.
Yeah.
He was playing like, like the modern, like the part of the modern family, right? Like he's playing the gay brother who's really involved, but then also really protective of his sister. And he has those quips that are supposed to be the comedic relief. And he nailed it. Like I just thought he was so damn good in that movie.
It was unbelievable. He was not an annoying character with that. He was not a cliched character. He was not, I guess, there's spoilers throughout this, little spoilers throughout. He is not a character that will be killed. Because there's unfortunately the two cliches of the black guy dying and also, the kill your gays situation and a lot of stuff. And so like you almost immediately see him as this overconfident, like funny. And I was just like, oh no, they're gonna do that to him, and they don't. And it's because his character is so strong, really, that you don't want to lose him. And the movie benefits from him, even in like small scenes where he's just like, "We're coming in the house." just little things like that kind of were, and he's genuine. He's completely genuine, and it's great. It's just great to see.
He has a Billy Porter look about him.
It drove me insane because I was like, "Who is this?" I've seen him before, and I'm like, "Oh no, it's literally Billy Porter."
But yeah, so I really enjoyed that. And the last thing I'll say is it does a really nice job, I thought, of incorporating social issues into the film, or into the story, I should say. I think a lot of films hit you upside the head with it. And I'm not against that because I think it's important to incorporate social issues in the films. And of course, I mean, if you follow any of my personal accounts, you'll see that I'm a so-called social justice warrior. But I really liked how they did it because it once again built upon a key element of the first Candyman. So I really just was impressed. It makes me really excited to see what Nia DaCosta is going to do in the future, especially as she steps into Marvel with the Marvels. So we'll see what happens there. But Sean, you had a little bit of a different take.
Yeah, I was a little bit more disappointed by this movie, and I'm going to be psyched to talk to you about a certain aspect of your review because I agree with almost everything. First part I'll say is yes, the Marvels are in good hands, or the Marvels is in good hands if we're talking about the movie, and that is because Nia DaCosta is an exceptional visual filmmaker. The kills that took place in this were so artfully done, so unbelievably well done. I was just blown away at how great this film looks. The shots she uses, the opening credits from the ground of like the skyscrapers is just unbelievably haunting and beautiful. So she knows how to direct a movie, and I am just so on board for her to direct everything possible. I think like, especially with like those kills looking so good, it's like, obviously those kills aren't going to be the type of kills we see in a Marvel movie, but from the angles, from the fun she had with them, that part of it's going to be great.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I'm loving that idea. Performances as well. Love pretty much all of them. Coleman Domingo, evilly sinister. Yahya Abdul-Mateen, slowly spiraling out of control. Teyana Paris, I think more than once, but definitely just the greatest moment was her opening the basement door, immediately saying no. And that joke has been done before. I know that there's been like jokes like that, but it was just perfectly told, like right there.
Yeah.
So that's all of the stuff I loved about this. I think my issue was this film got a little bit rushed for me towards the end. And this is unfortunately, and my goodness, I praise that 90-minute runtime walking into the theater. I was so excited to be able to like get out of there in 90 minutes. But I think it actually was a little bit to its detriment. And this is very surprising for me to say. You'll never get me saying this. Like, I love a shorter movie. But I feel like towards the end, the characters sort of skipped a few steps in their development, where all of a sudden Coleman Domingo was like, kind of a creepy swear dude, where he's all of a sudden he's like sinister villain type of situation. The same thing with where it's just he is slowly spiraling and slow, but all of a sudden he's just like dead to the world. And I started to feel like this definitely has a cut to it where there's a little bit more. And no, I will not do the release the DaCosta cut. We're going to be talking about that later. We're not doing that. Although I'll be curious to see if there is one. If it comes out on DVD, I'll be happily watching it. And now the part where we're going to get uncomfortable a little bit, because I think that the morals and the themes here, I don't know if they just fit well in the movie. My big one is gentrification. They mention the word, they mention the definition, they mention the two neighborhoods. I don't see how it was incorporated into the plot in the best way possible. I know it was him trying to make the artist trying to make a representation of it, but I could not get behind that one. Now, the theme that does work is the one that I really like, where it's like, Coleman Domingo's character, where even though it's rushed, I sort of see what he's doing is he wants to create less suffering behind Black mythos. And that is a very bold and interesting way to talk about something. And that's like the original Candyman and this Candyman as well. By the way, I should say this. I have not seen the original Candyman like Joe has. So a lot of what I say could be discounted completely based on that. But like, I loved the idea of that theme. And I really liked that idea. I don't think, like some of the characters, it wasn't really given the time to breathe. Now, I gave this movie an average rating, and I really wrestled with possibly giving it a B instead of a C. But those little aspects still just bothered me just enough that it was too difficult to kind of get past.
Yeah, I totally get that. So this is where I struggle with the question of, do you need to see the first one before you see this one? Not because if you're going into it for just a straight up horror film, then no, you don't have to see it, because they do set that up pretty well. However, when you get to the gentrification talks and the conversation around the fact that slums or the bad side of the tracks are areas that the city wants to ignore until it can't ignore it anymore, and they go in and they displace everyone and build it up, and that whole conversation, it's not explicitly talked about in the first Candyman, but it's a big piece of it, because that's where Candyman comes from, essentially, and continues to live on and prey, right? Candyman's not across the city. Candyman's not in, the lofts in downtown Chicago. Candyman is in this area that was very that was part of the original story or original film. So I think that it's more of a subtle conversation around gentrification and ties into the larger conversation of racial divide in a metropolitan city like that, where then you get into the conversation of how police treat the stories there, right? That's very much something that I think comes through, is like, it actually all wraps into what you mentioned with the Black ethos or Black mythos, the stories and the seriousness of them and taking them seriously. I think you see a little bit of that at the beginning of this movie with the kid when he first goes past the police, and like you see that disconnect between the police and him, or the distrust in a sense, where they're holding up the sign and he's kind of like, I'm not going near you.
I'm talking to you.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of things that they brought up and a lot of ideas that were introduced. There was a conversation going around of like, will there be another Candyman, another sequel? And I think they actually could, because I think they could dive into this much more with how they set up sort of the mythos around all this. But that's where I struggle with telling people they don't have to see the first one. They kept calling it a spiritual sequel, and that's pretty literal in this sense, because they created it more of like a spiritual inhabitant of a body or something, right? Like the original Candyman, at least this is my mistake, but I was led to believe that Candyman was a single entity. And in this, they kind of make it as like Candyman is, in Yaya's case,
he's the whole damn hive.
Born into it. Yeah, the whole damn hive. So I think there's a lot of things that were explored there. And I agree with you. I think that the 90-minute cut, number one, it surprised me. So, because if you remember last week, when Darren said that to us, I was like, there's no way. And I looked it up and it said 2 hours. Part of me wonders if it was 2 hours originally and they cut some of it out to make it a 90-minute film. Maybe in the
2 hours in a lot of other places.
Yeah. Well. So there's something with that. And I agree with you, because it does take a little bit of a leap near the end. But I kind of enjoyed that, because I was like, all right, like I don't need to know more here. We see what's happening. Let's just get to it. And that's where I think that we end up with a lot of conversations about these 2 hour, 15-minute films, where we're saying like, it was really good, a bit too long. That could have been cut out. This could have been cut out. So there's the happy medium that I think needs to be found. And maybe there could have been a better one with Candyman. But I will tell you that everyone that I've talked to that didn't enjoy it brought that up about the third act feeling rushed. Everyone that did enjoy it was like, whatever.
Well, it's so funny, because I am like, it's me complaining about that, but at the same time, I kind of knew like Coleman Domingo's character. I was like, So he's like a super fan making the thing happen. Like, granted, nothing told me that until then. I mean, yeah, he knew the legend, but like nothing told me that this guy's making Candyman,
Right.
basically. And it's just one of those things where it's like, oh, I don't know. I mean, sure, I got there. I did get there, and it was fine. So, but there was something about it that like rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
I want to bring this up because this will be really interesting. Did this movie scare you?
I knew you were going there. So when you said you were going to call out something in my review, I felt like that was going to be it.
I mean, this is one of the things. Yeah.
Oh, Christ. It did, actually. And I'll tell you why. It made me uneasy. And I was having this conversation recently, and I can't remember who it was with. But horror movies are so interesting in that sense, right? Like, what is scary? And I don't want to get into that conversation, but like, of course, jump scares are scary, right? But if a movie can make me feel uneasy, then everything that happens is going to scare me in terms of like every development is going to feel a bit uncomfortable. And to me, that's scary, to be taken to a place in a film that is not what you expected it to be or not where you want to be. And it did that on multiple levels here. Number one, just like, the steady diving into the craze that Yaya ended up doing. But then also, there's uncomfortable realities when it comes to the social issues that are brought up. And I thought that they were kind of used in really creative ways in terms of like unsettling someone that's watching it. Right. And I'm saying this as like a white male. So God knows, like, it made me uncomfortable because these are conversations that, like, I'd like to think I'm in the know more, but I don't have any of the answers. I would never say that I had the answers. And I continue to be someone that wants to learn from them. So to have them thrown at me in a movie where I'm sitting there and forced to watch it, it makes me sort of think about it more. And I enjoyed that. But in addition to that, I just thought that the way in which they went about expanding the story was pretty frightening to me. But in terms of like, if we're comparing it to like a Paranormal Activity or like even a Nighthouse where I was like jumping out of my seat multiple times, not happening.
I like that you kind of went for the existential scare more than
well, and that's honestly how I felt. Like, because I thought about that afterwards. I was like, was I frightened? And I was like, kind of was. Like,
I mean, I think it worked for me, and it was once again DaCosta's direction, where there were just these moments where it was like very slight that you saw the Candyman, or very like slight in the like these background moments and these environments that you see that are very unsettling. So I would say it creeped me out. It didn't scare me. Now, bear in mind that I went to see the Nighthouse 2 days before this, so it's kind of like I ate like a bowl of ghost peppers, and then followed by this, where I like had like just like a couple of pieces of bread. That's how it felt on the scale. But I'll talk about Nighthouse later.
The beginning is actually also what unsettled me. The first interaction with Candyman, which is back in the day in terms of like what we're seeing. But it's a creepy man offering candy to a kid. Let's not forget that there were razor blades in the candy. Like
he was exonerated. There was more razor blades than that. Like, that's the thing. He was just a friendly guy with a hook hand that lived in a wall giving out candy. Some other person was giving razor blades with the candy.
Correct, but regardless, there was razor blades in candy. Like when Yaya's in the elevator and candy drops, and there's razor blades in it.
Oh, well, when he becomes a monster, he's giving out razor blade candy.
You know what I mean? Like, it's I don't know. This is a movie that I can't wait to watch again because I just feel like I need that. I want to see. I want to catch things that I didn't catch before, and I do feel like there's a lot more in here that I didn't see.
I was impressed by how funny it was. I mean, between like some of the cast members, like we talked about Nathan Stewart Jarrett, who like really did provide a lot of levity, and then the open the basement, nope, close the basement, and then what made me laugh harder than I ever did is when he went into the elevator and it was full of mirrors, and I could not stop laughing at that moment.
Yeah, that was well done.
So well done, because he kind of looks around and like, this is why Yaya's such a great actor. He's like, Okay, yeah.
The cast itself was really good, and you could tell that they all jived very well in terms of on-screen chemistry, and that I thought was impressive.
Yeah, I mean, the cast was really good. I mean, everyone was sort of like they were all doing their exact roles of either a horror movie or what this movie was supposed to be. I just think of Coleman Domingo just like I think the way I put it in my review is just making a meal out of every scene and just being sinister and stuff. And I think I always compliment Coleman Domingo because I think he's just always that good, but he's always good for what the type of movie he needs to be in. And this, he's like in the back of a laundromat, like, just telling stories of the Candyman.
Yeah, he's just chilling in a laundromat. I love when she goes over to the laundromat to find him. She's
because
like, hold on.
Of the green pen. Well, this was a great thing because that was like I could be a CinemaSins guy and be like, how did she know to look at the green pen, and how did he know that the green pen would but you see that green pen like throughout in the kitchen. And that is just like this great little touch because I mean, like, why else would you make something so uncomfortably neon green? As in, like, you see everyone writing with it, and I thought that meant like, ooh, there's going to be a curse on everyone. It's like, no, this is just like steps to take in order for her to go there, which was fascinating.
It's like the year of the pens when you consider Loki as well, and the pen that was in what's her name's office, Renslayer.
Oh my god.
You alluded to something else in my review that you had issues with?
No. Just in what you were talking about before with the social issue stuff. But we ironed that out.
Yeah. I don't know. We've talked about this countless times where there's certain movies that like hit you in a weird way and just work for you. And I think that's why there's so many of us that consider ourselves critics and do what we do, because we all find something in movies that maybe someone else didn't. Or it worked, like certain movies work in different ways. But this is actually like a fun conversation to have to try to get through some of the things that like maybe we disagree on. And Sean, usually we're so far apart that we're like,
I don't know. Like, what was did everyone not miss last episode of Suicide Squad's awesome? And so that's it, but I think usually I like to think that we agree.
We do. That's true.
But this one was a big one, and I think that. But I think still both of us like see what's going on the other's purview here. We're not
absolutely
off base. Yeah,
absolutely. I'm really interested to see if they do continue it, because usually I'm like, don't do a sequel, but I feel like they could here. And one last thing I wanted to say: Teyonah Parris saves the day, or like she's like the head of, or the last woman standing at the end, essentially. Like she kind of pieces it all together, and I just thought she was so strong in it. And being first exposed to her in WandaVision and seeing her kind of in this role and just having a blast clearly in like making the movie, I'm really excited to continue to watch her flourish.
Yeah, it would be interesting if she was in the sequel, or they just try to do like anthology and they just go for like some other type of story, which I think is really the way to do it, because there's like suffering and revenge that can be happening, and I think that would be maybe Coleman Domingo's the character, Coleman Domingo's dead. But like
I think we could have
gathering more Candyman.
We could have a Candyman Paranormal Activity crossover.
Oh, I mean, yes.
Very easily.
They did it with Bloody Mary for Paranormal Activity, which was interesting.
That's true. That's very true. All right, let's move on to something that we totally agree on. And this is, today we got the first trailer for the movie Mass, which is a film that we both watched during Sundance this year and both I absolutely loved. But it is a hard-ass watch, and it will emotionally rip you apart, which is what I love.
Tough sell.
Tough sell. But two couples meet for a painful and raw conversation in the aftermath of a violent tragedy. Sean and I have been very tight-lipped about like what this tragedy is when we talked about it in the past. But I think that the trailer that was released today does a really good job of building up to it and then kind of revealing what happened. So we're going to go ahead and play that trailer for you now. So if you're watching, enjoy. If you're listening, you'll still get the same impact.
How many people are coming?
There'll be 4 of them.
Richard, Linda, this is Jay and Gail Perry.
Thank you for agreeing to meet us.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna leave you alone. Let me know if you need anything.
You say you want to heal. Is this how?
We're not here to attack you, and we promise that. We want to know how this happened. We need your help with that.
I'm willing to help.
When you talk about blame on your part. I want to know what you're referring to.
It's very hard to answer.
Well, please try.
It's not just one thing.
Tell me about your son.
What would you like to know?
Everything. I want to know everything.
Why?
Why do I want to know about your son? Because he killed mine.
It's not our fault, Richard.
That's a great trailer.
So well done. So like just in general, like it, I will say like for it in a vacuum, that is a well done trailer.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen this movie. First of all, please see this movie. It can be a tough sit. It's an emotional sit, but it's such a like perfectly well constructed movie that it's just like it will do all of the right things to emotions that are necessary, even if they're bothersome. But beyond that, like just to talk about this trailer is my whole thing with this is I've discussed this movie with so many people that haven't seen it. I've talked about this movie with so many people that haven't seen it. I've said the premise and they said, "Oh, I'm not going to see that." Absolutely not. Because this does not sound like something that's going to be a lighthearted affair. And, you know, to tell you the truth, it absolutely isn't. I think this trailer takes that on very well. It builds with the intensity. It does not show too much. And like we've said, it does sort of reveal the premise, which I think is a tough thing to put a lid on. Like, because otherwise it's like, hey, 4 parents are meeting in a room. Like there's nothing really more that you could do there. But they let it go at the exact moment. They don't show too much of the devastation that they all go through. It's more about the conflicts at this point. And I think that's what should be focused on to get people to see this movie. It really does. Like I was just kind of like it says the main premise without like bumming you out. And that is like the main thing that I think is going on there. Besides, the best thing to do is, you know, you obviously don't show much, but you show some key lines and then get those critics, get what those critics say, because that'll just show you this is something that you definitely want to go with.
And I agreed with every one of those critic statements that were on there. And if you're listening, you didn't see them, but Google it, Google or YouTube the trailer for Mass from Bleecker Street, and you'll see what we're talking about. What's interesting is that each of the actors in this movie, and we're really focused on 4 main actors here, Martha Plimpton, Ann Dowd, Jason Isaacs, and Reed Birney, each have their moment. So like you're talking about how the preview or the trailer shows the conflict, and it doesn't get into the torment and the emotions and the destruction of each individual, or destruction and then rebuilding in some cases. That happens, but each of them have a moment to go through that in this film. And it's just, I don't want to say too much about it because I just remember going into it not knowing what that issue was. I think you were in the same boat. Like we didn't know what the instigating incident was. And it's just heavy, but it's real. And, you know, in a world that has so much tragedy, especially with kids being so evil to one another, it is something that I think is really just a great film all in all.
I want to I don't know if I'll be able to do an Oscar article about this. I want to make sure it could be an interesting one. They're all being campaigned very hard right now for supporting.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very interesting way to look at that because there's no lead actors here. Like, you know, you could put Jason Isaacs in the lead because he's got the bigger name if you want to. But I think every one of those 4 are supporting basically each other in some way. And so they're supporting the movie. And so it will be really interesting to see what lines up. My really hard prediction, I don't know who specifically, but there's going to be at least 2 people that are supporting actors in the nominees for the Academy Awards this year from this movie.
Martha Plimpton has to be one of them.
It's got to be Plimpton, and I think it's see, this is what sucks. And then I was gonna say it's got to be Isaacs, but no, freaking Ann Dowd. This is
the only one that I think we could write off there, and it's not because it's a bad performance at all. I think it's Reed Birney. I don't think he would make a push because the other 3 are just that fantastic.
They're that fantastic, and this is the gross thing. Very gross. The other 3 are names as well. And Reed Birney is a great character actor, and it would be really cool to see him get nominated because he is really. I remember in his moment as well. He is it's just unbelievable. This is a movie that is just like, even though it is devastating and it's a difficult watch. It's just like if you are a fan of movies, which I believe you just might be. It's just so well done between the screenplay and the script. This isn't just the typical 4 people in a room and like one of them, I mean, they do get up from like their chairs and stuff, but like you almost like feel like this is a play. And this one isn't a play. It's not based off of a play.
Absolutely.
Really crucial. And I didn't know that. I was certain it was. And this is something that's on its own working with this. It works from the awkward to the intense to the devastating. It works through all these emotions. I mean, like oh boy, I'm getting chills because I'm thinking about portions of this movie, and it is like it is truly one of the best of the year. And like, hey, I don't know, I haven't made my top 10 yet. It ain't December, but it may be up there.
It brings you in as if you're sitting there, like watching this happening, like in the middle of the table. You're like looking on this side, and then you're like, oh, and then over here, like, oh my god, yeah, like it's just so good. But all right. Let's
turn from a trailer review to a movie review, but I'm okay with it.
It's true. Well, it's what we do here. Let's move on and talk about what we've been watching. If we can move through this a little quickly, that would be great. I'm just going to highlight, this is actually a TV show that I've been watching, and it's uncharacteristic of me to bring this up, but I have been a Hell's Kitchen fan forever. I love Hell's Kitchen. I am a huge fan of Gordon Ramsay, have eaten at a lot of his restaurants, and continue to follow his life and read I've read his autobiography. I don't follow his life like stalkerish, but I watch every show that he has, whether that's Hotel Hell, Kitchen Nightmares, 24 Hours to Hell and Back, Hell's Kitchen. Anyway, Hell's Kitchen Young Guns is on right now, and what this is the 20th season of Hell's Kitchen. It's really interesting because they haven't changed really the format in years. And it's really funny because they have won Emmys and stuff. And the producers are like, why would we change the format? like it works. And they continue to have high ratings. And this is for the 20th season, they did 23 and under for all the contestants. And it really is like a shot in the arm for the show. It's really just intriguing, and just watching people excel at something like that is really great. People always say they hate Gordon Ramsay because he's nasty and stuff on the show. But, he said in an interview once, like, it's called Hell's Kitchen. It's not called like, Angel's Domain or something like that. Because on MasterChef, he's like much calmer and nicer and supportive. And he's like, they're home chefs. They shouldn't know what they're doing. Like, the people that are coming to Hell's Kitchen are actual chefs. All in all, to say, the season wraps up shortly, but it's been a lot of fun to watch. So if you haven't watched Hell's Kitchen, or if you haven't, if you were watching it before and fell off of it, this is a good season to get back into because it's just a lot of fun. Well produced too. Really good show.
When you were talking about watching shows, I thought you were going to talk about that you watch Clickbait.
I watched 2 episodes of Clickbait. I haven't finished yet, and I'm like finding it hard to go back to it, to be honest.
If you watch all 8, Adrian Greener actually dies. So it's interesting that they get that going on. But anyway.
He's got a big head.
Oh, my God, giant. Okay, so what have I been watching? Well, I mentioned it before. It's the movie that ruined the scariness of Candyman. It was The Nighthouse. The Nighthouse might be one of the scariest movie experiences I've actually ever had. It is some well-constructed jump scares, great direction. There was a moment where I shook for a good 15 to 30 seconds. It was a little bit nuts. I was kind of surprised.
Was it when she was driving?
No, it was it was when she put her head on Sarah Goldberg's lap, and then all of a sudden it was just yeah.
I can't remember if this was in the press conference that I was a part of with the director, but that he loves that scene. Like that was the one that he was like, this makes it.
That did it. Because like before that, there was some like solid jump scares, well constructed, and that one just absolutely I literally went out of my skull. I'm uncontrollably shaking my legs and hands, and John was very nervous that something was genuinely wrong with me because that one got me bad. So then from then on, I was terrified the whole time. But the great thing about that, it was a great. What I really liked about that movie was that the villain was not asshole husband. And still involves the husband. And I actually don't want to spoil this, but the fact that it was more of a supernatural thing was just a much more sinister and more interesting way to look at it. And just shout out to Rebecca Hall, who just is just great with the comedy, the terror. She does the driest comedy that I've ever seen. It's just so well done as she is walking into a house that she's terrified of. And it's like, I can't get over how good she handles the grief and everything. She's hitting every emotion perfectly. Oh man, what a great movie. I also saw Vacation Friends.
Can we go back to Nighthouse? The gunshot in Nighthouse also got me.
One. That's a very good one.
And can I tell you, remember I told you that the Nighthouse shut off like 10 minutes in or something? Oh. It shut off right after the gunshot. And so we had to rewatch the gunshot, and it scared the shit out of me again, and I knew it was coming. It just like, oh my God, that movie. That's, aside from a Paranormal Activity movie, which has jump scare galore in it, whether or not you like the movies or not, they will scare the shit out of you in the theater. This got me. It's so good.
Well, it's unfortunate because I personally think jump scares are a cheap way to get someone to go. All you have to do is change the sound immediately and change the stuff. But if you really try to like toy with the audience like this one does, I mean, toys with the audience so well that it just like will like mess with you throughout. And now I just remembered something else from the Nighthouse as I start my teaching year. Her way of telling off a teacher one time is just, I mean, like for the teachers out there, you know the fantasy, man. Oh man, that was just beautiful. Or telling off a parent, excuse me.
I was gonna say it's a parent.
So I also saw Vacation Friends, and my pause was meant to be a thing of like, you know, this movie sucks, and it does. It's sort of meant to be like the 90s comedy that you'll definitely forget about in like a couple of weeks, and like we just sort of all know those. But I want to just mention it that John Cena has a natural comedic ability. We already knew that from the Suicide Squad, but it's just like, okay, he can do this at different levels. He can do this on different pages. John Cena, like, will make you laugh in this movie. And it like, this movie's not good. I don't recommend you see it, but if you're going to enjoy at least that. There are like, he almost earns the right for you to see this movie because he is that funny. And it's nuts because, you know, the other, like two other people are comedians in there, and they were not given great written roles. And maybe John Cena wasn't either, and he kind of made the most of it. I don't know how you can, like, you know, bargain everything there, but I truly think that, like, this guy, I hope he stays in this amazing lane of comedy because it's just, it's going to be a treat for us all.
Did you see that people are bringing up that he should play the Thing in Fantastic Four? I would actually be for it. I've decided. I think that would be really good. No?
I'm trying to digest it, and it's really tough too. I think it works. I mean,
the Thing always has a comedic aspect to him.
I'm like starting to see this, like a sort of a comedic and an insecurity level thing like that. Okay. I think, all right. I'm liking it.
He's also got a really big head too, but I don't know why that's my thing today. All right. We have a lot of news to get to. So let's start it off with pissing a lot of people off with this conversation. But I kind of had a frustrating moment today because so this kind of involves other news too. But DC Fandom announced their full lineup for October 16th. This is the second DC Fandom. If you remember, they did it last summer too. Actually, a really well done day of virtual premieres of trailers and first looks and interviews and all that stuff. They talk about their shows, their movies, and their games, as well as anything else they have going on. I think there was also some comic stuff in there. The second DC Fandom is coming up on October 16th. It's going to feature looks at the Batman, Aquaman 2, The Flash, Shazam, the Gotham Knights game, the Suicide Squad game, the Peacemaker show, all kinds of things like that. Well, you may have heard of something called Restore the Snyder Cut. And Restore the Snyder Cut came out of the original Release the Snyder Cut. And I'm sorry, it's Restore the Snyderverse. Came out of Release the Snyder Cut. So, of course, the Snyder Cut was released, and now everything turned to Restore the Snyderverse with the contingent of people that want to see the Snyder's original vision reestablished and put back into play. I, for one, was someone for a while that like I would have loved to see that play out because I liked what he was setting up. So I want to preface this for anyone that's listening who is like championing Restore the Snyderverse, that like I'm all for loving something so much that like you continue to make it known. What I'm not enjoying is that the original intent of releasing the Snyder Cut was twofold. One is that people wanted to see Zack Snyder's artistic vision realized, and two, there was some mismanagement of the whole process of stepping over to Joss Whedon and what he did on the set, and just a lot of dirty stuff around it, whether that was from himself or from Warner Brothers interference that really shot down the movie in the wake of the poor performance of Batman vs. Superman, and also during a time where Zack Snyder's daughter had just committed suicide. Right now, what's happening is today DC Fandom was trending on Twitter. It's a big announcement. People are really pumped for it, and regardless of, I guess not regardless, but I think even some Snyderverse fans would say that they're excited for some of the properties that are coming up. But what happened was there was a push to eclipse the trend of DC Fandom with restore the Snyderverse tweets, just to overshadow what's going on with the DCEU, or I guess with DC properties in general. In addition to that, there's talk of them doing a Twitter event on the 16th to try to drown out DC Fandom and try to get Warner Brothers to see where they're coming from. I've quickly devolved into feeling like this is very toxic. And the reason I say that is because what these fans are doing is hanging on to something that no longer is really probable or possible in a lot of ways, and is actually already being done in some ways as well. We have Batfleck coming back. We have The Flash continuing. We have Aquaman. The Cyborg, of course, that's a whole nother issue, but there's legal matters wrapped up in the Ray Fisher saga that I think are going to keep us from seeing Ray Fisher for quite a while. But it's really starting to bother me that this group of fans continues to try to push their narrative and dismiss everything else that DC is doing, which in turn ignores the fans that are excited for this upcoming slate of films. The Batman being one of the biggest ones, the people that love the Suicide Squad, right? The Suicide Squad was a really good movie, and a lot of people, and it didn't get its due in the box office, but it did when it comes to the numbers that Samba TV released, which is later on in our outline, but we can kind of mention that now. It did 4.7 million households in the first 3 weeks, which is the top DC film or top performing DC film on HBO Max this year, as well as second only to Mortal Kombat. So I guess what I wanted to bring up with this, and I've been talking a while and I apologize, but my issue with it is it's taken a turn where they're not accomplishing what they want to anymore. Or that I think what they're doing is setting them, I don't even know how to say this. I think they're making themselves look bad, and it's overshadowing DC, Warner Brothers / DC, trying to right the ship, whether I agree with it or not. And if you listen to this podcast, I don't agree with a lot of the stuff they're doing. But it's just becoming way too toxic. And I feel like it's giving people that were against the Snyder Cut in the beginning more ammunition to say, look, this is what happened. You give them an inch, they want to take a mile.
I mean, that's exactly what I was going to allude to there, is that, give a mouse a cookie, or the inch and a mile situation. But the largest problem here is that, other companies, other studios, I mean, Disney and Marvel are watching this happen. And if they see this, they'll say, oh, if we ever are in a release the Snyder Cut situation, we're not going to release the Snyder Cut, or we're not going to cater to fans. Which it seems insane, to say that all these like studios or these corporations won't cater to fans. But if they continue to do ask for things that just aren't possible, then they'll stop giving you anything, because they'll know that that's going to be the case. The old Sean cop out is that all fandoms are toxic in certain corners at certain points. Rick and Morty, Community, Red Sox, Yankees. It's just they all tend to just blow things up and become just problems and problematic and slow things down. I then look at this as a cocky old man and say, oh yeah, how much damage can they do on a Twitter bomb? And a part of me just genuinely does agree with this, where it's oh, they're going to get that hashtag going. It'll probably trend during DC Con or DC Fandom. And it's something where other things will also trend. We'll get like an Aquaman 2 trailer, and that'll be more popular than a Restore the Snyderverse that goes nowhere. I understand they probably have a pretty solid contingent, but at the same time, it just feels like the news of a movie is always going to be more popular than people complaining about a news of no movie.
Yeah.
And I think that happens here. But once again, I stay as far away from Twitter as I can, so I don't know how that works.
The reason I don't like it is because a while back, and I can't remember what movie it was, but this was before they announced the Snyder Cut. They released something or a trailer for something, and it wasn't even trending or anything because all of the comments on it were about the Snyder Cut. And that's what's continuing to happen, is they're kind of like drilling into anything that Warner Brothers releases, saying that, restore the Snyderverse, you did Ray Fisher dirty, Walter Hamada has to resign. And I'm not disagreeing with any of this. I'm just talking about how we go about it. And I just don't think it is the right thing to do. And it's also to the point where it's starting to disrespect not only other filmmakers and the actors involved, not to mention the fact that a lot of the actors involved in these upcoming movies would be in the Snyderverse as well. Yeah. So like, kind of like friendly fire there, but also just disrespecting other DC fans in general and putting your own interest before them, which I guess shouldn't surprise me actually as I'm saying that, because that's toxicity, and it's also the way of America right now. So
it's just one of the things that like I just think about. It's like you got this, something amazing happened with the Snyder Cut. That doesn't happen. I don't think a lot of people realize that doesn't happen. Like, you demand like, a movie of a larger cut, like made by a director that was basically ousted and had a lot of unsuccessful films in that same, for that company. And they let him go and do this. And it's great. And it's awesome. And yeah, like I'm sure when I watched it, I got a little bit hungry to see those characters go further into a Snyderverse. We all did. We talked about it on this pod. Mm-hmm. We wanted some of that stuff. But at this point, it can't be done. And I'm not speaking as a studio head. I'm speaking as a fan that looks at the studio heads that are saying it can't be done. It won't be done. We're not doing it. And they do hold the power. Your hashtag doesn't hold the power. It just annoys people. Unfortunately, that's the case.
I've also said it before. I'm not quite sure that we won't see some continuation in some way, whether it's a nod in the Flash, whether it's a short, series on HBO Max or something like that with Batfleck, or, I think there's still a lot of options out there and we just may not know them, right? Like I don't know. I guess now as I'm talking, I'm thinking more that I'm like complaining about the internet, which is here we go.
Tune in next week for our hour on Twitter.
Yeah. Thank you for listening to us on the internet. All right. Shall we move on?
Let's do it.
So CinemaCon was happening last week, and that is when all the theater distributors get together. Theater distributor. Yeah, I guess that's right. Owners and distributors get together, and the major studios have presentations revealing kind of their upcoming slate and giving inside looks. We got some news on The Matrix 4, which is in fact called The Matrix Resurrections. That's something that we had heard rumored a while ago. So that was confirmed. Those in attendance also got a first look at a sizzle reel, or I guess a clip of the film, which reportedly showed Keanu Reeves' character of Thomas Anderson meeting Carrie-Anne Moss's Trinity at a coffee shop, though they don't recognize each other. Anderson is said to be in therapy, with Neil Patrick Harris's character treating him, prescribing 2 blue pills a day. That all changes when he runs into what we suspect is a young Morpheus, or who we suspect is young Morpheus, played by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who hands him a red pill, and off they go.
He hands him candy.
There you go. So this is scheduled to come out December 22nd. One of the other things, I saw it in another report, but apparently Jonathan Groff is in this, and they think that he's playing another agent, or like the new incarnation of agents. I'm like, what does that mean? Like he's woke?
Well, I was going to say that it was Neil Patrick Harris that was going to be the agent giving out the blue pills, but kind of like keeping him at bay.
That's a good point too. I mean, Neil Patrick Harris and Jonathan Groff, like one and the same.
If they become singing agents, I'll be so happy.
I I hope they're in a relationship. I'm intrigued by this. I like the premise a little bit with kind of like resetting him in a sense and being like, here we go. We have another cycle of the Matrix coming up and like, it's time to come back, but it's Yahya as Morpheus. So what's going on there? Again, I want to go on a record. I want to repeat my going on the record that I do not believe for a second that Lawrence Fishburne's not involved in this movie, even though he has said he's not. But carry on, Sean.
I mean, in the words of Montel Jordan, this is how we do it. Like, this is how we're going to like change something into like, I Googled who sung that song. This is exactly like how you start this again, because, it's been a while since 3, a long while since 3. And, obviously, however you feel about the film, got a little crazy, ended the way it did. This is where you do it as like just like the ultimate, literal reboot, but like an actual reboot going on in this. And I think it's fun. I think they run into each other. Do they know each other? Remember each other? Nothing about it. Like, do they know anyone? Does that Morpheus know anyone? Is he from like the past? So he's like a Morpheus origin story, that kind of deal. It's like, really, this is just like how you do it though, is where now I did it again. Starting it completely over and jumping back into like a lovely pond. Hopefully they keep it like, how do I say it interestingly enough? I don't know. Hopefully they keep it more into the going back into the philosophical angles of this, because I think they lost that in 2 and 3. And I know there was some philosophy in there, but like, the first one was just so deep and like such a deep and rich text. And then it kind of lost its way in those sequels, but I think they will. I think they sort of learned their lesson.
Maybe they'll explain like Q and Trump as like viruses in the Matrix or something. There's so much they could do.
No, because we gotta be careful there, because if they're the virus in the Matrix, it's like the vaccine keeps them in order, and then like they can, there'll be like 8 judgment jumps, like they can hit, and then all of a sudden we've got the anti-vaxxers with another corkboard full of string.
There was a tweet the other day from someone that said that Hurricane Ida? That Ida was man-made to distract from what's going on in Afghanistan.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, makes sense.
Biden can't work his phone. You think he's got the ability to summon a hurricane?
I was out there just spinning a lot. I was asked to spin to try to get the winds going. I'm excited for this. It's supposed to come out in December. I'm still a little weary on whether films are going to get delayed or not, but they seem to be
films we haven't seen yet. Like, let's go. Give us a fucking trailer.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that something didn't come out after CinemaCon, but hey, is what it is. I'm excited for it. I would like this to maybe relaunch The Matrix in a way. I would be all for that. I enjoyed the movies, as crazy as they got. I kind of grew up with them, so I wasn't as like, invested in picking them apart as I would be today. So that should be interesting for Wachowski.
That's the problem, is I watched him in high school and loved him, and then I watched him in college and I said, oh, wait a minute. And then that just ruined everything. Don't watch movies in college.
Takes one English class in college and look.
Oh, tell me about it.
The next story is about the Lion King prequel.
Let's go, man. Let's go. Barry Jenkins at the helm.
Which makes no sense to me, but I guess, hey, I hope it works. What we have found out is that Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Aaron Pierre have joined the cast as young Mufasa and young Scar. Scar goes by the name of Taka back in the day. Artist formerly known as Taka. The movie is rumored to dive into Mufasa's backstory and more of what leads up to the events of the film that we're all familiar with. They will be using the same technology that was used in 2019's film, but I have to believe that they're going to try to like work on the whole issue with the mouths and everything that people had. And I believe that there's original music being written for it as well. But whatever. I'll go see it. Let's be real. It's Disney.
We've talked about the Barry Jenkins of it all, which means that I absolutely trust this, because at this point that guy's got the perfect track record, and I am like fully absorbed into anything he does. Now this casting is great. Kelvin Harrison Jr. and Aaron Pierre both have like this like real raw intensity, but that's usually shown through their faces. So that gets tricky in an animated movie. But I think they also could probably emit that through the voices. And They are both like just spectacular actors. I want both. Kelvin Harrison Jr., it doesn't make sense that he's not a star that has a name that like just rolls off the tongue now, because he's been in so much, both like, like indie and famous. Aaron Pierre's a little less familiar, but I've seen him in a couple of things, and he's also got like some great intensity there.
Yeah, so I had recognized him from something, and I couldn't figure out where it was from. And I was very big into the 2-season show Krypton, clearly.
Ooh,
but Krypton's actually a really good show. It was very well done. I can't believe it didn't get renewed. It was on Sci-Fi. It wasn't going to get renewed. But Aaron Pierre played Dev M in that show. And I just, for those that watch Krypton or are familiar with it, that's where I knew him from. I'm interested in this because I think that they both have those kind of, as Sean mentioned, that intensity. And yes, a lot of it has to do with their nonverbals, but they also know how to deliver a line. And that's also what we know of Mufasa and Scar in these movies, or in at least the Lion King that we know, is that they can deliver a line and they have a raw intensity behind them that is kind of piercing with whatever they're trying to do. There's a reason why it's, Mufasa's the king and Scar's trying to take it. I think that they'll be able to translate that intensity to the delivery of those lines. And I'm actually really here for this casting. I think it's pretty solid.
It's going to be really weird to see sort of Jenkins directing an animated movie and directing, their performances and sort of saying like, hey, what can we do with those performances? And like, how can we draw that out? How can I draw like these guys that are normally great at, showing face, like into just these vocal performances? Because I think like there's something very tricky to voice acting. I mean, Chris Rock has a bit where it's like the easiest thing in the world. You go into a box and you say some stuff. I think like voice acting can go terrible on so many ways. And so I'm hoping that's not the case for these two. I don't think it will be the case for these two, but it'll be interesting to see that dynamic with all of them.
Don't lay into Beyonce that way. She tried her best.
Lions. Attack.
All right, Lions, attack. It was the worst. They brought her in to sing that one song, and that was it. They're like, we're going to give you a song called Spirit. You ready?
And that was the one word they let her sing.
Yeah.
Spirit!
She ran
through the desert in 2 seconds.
Yeah. They were singing, Can you feel the love tonight during the day?
Not one person on set say, wait a minute.
No, apparently. It's kind of like, speaking of which, this is a little bit of a diversion, but I always complain about people that don't catch editing mistakes. And you didn't watch this yet, but I saw it on TikTok because I live on there now. And Addison Rae, and He's All That, put her hand up in one scene and her arm disappeared. Did you see this?
Oh, no, that will be the worst part of this.
It's not the fact that we're remaking a movie about, trying to change the looks of someone to make them more palatable.
But have a strong female center in the character where the sexual politics were already screwed up in the 90s. And
Right.
Put the guy in the middle.
Right. Yeah. This will go over well. Netflix is like, fuck. What did we do? It's like the
they have the top fucking movie right now, so we're all screwed.
Yeah, it's an intern that greenlit this. All right, let's switch over to what's going on with Marvel. Not much. What we've learned from Marvel recently is that, or what we learned from The Wrap recently, is that Marvel is reportedly developing a Halloween special for Disney Plus that is based on, or is an adaptation of Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night is a name used by multiple Marvel characters, a descendant of the mystically altered offshoot of humans known as lycanthropes, who eventually becomes capable of transforming on his own volition, even without a full moon, and retaining his intellect while transformed. What's kind of interesting about this is that there's 2 different versions. I think that was the first version, actually. But the first version interacts with Moon Knight a lot. And of course, we know that Moon Knight is premiering next year. So that would be kind of an obvious link that they would probably exploit. And the other version is a member of the Hopi Native American tribe whose family has been cursed with lycanthropy. Comes in conflict with a nefarious pharmaceutical company exploiting members of the tribe. I kind of love that. I'm like, let's get political. Let's go crazy. Big business.
Disney Plus will dive right into that one.
Yeah. Which is a great point. So it's probably the first version there that we're dealing with. But hey, whatever. The reason I put this on here is because I'm kind of bored. I think they're starting to do too much.
I'm kind of bored. We got. Oh, you mean you're kind of bored with Marvel? I mean, this just like literally feels like a promo for Moon Knight, and that's all this is. Like, it'll be a special. It'll be done well. Maybe it'll be enjoyable. But its sole purpose, its sole reason for existence, is so that people can watch Moon Knight and pay for Ethan Hawke and Oscar Isaac's salary. Because good God, like I don't know what it is, but it's not going to be pretty. I think, yeah, like that's where I look at this, and people can, sort of lose their mind by hearing the words Marvel Halloween special, like I almost did. Like I assumed this was like Hulk has to go shopping to get the candy corns, and then like, oops, he spilled them. I mean, this sounds better. So I am on board for this. It looks like fun.
The Avengers Halloween musical special. I would be into that. So I don't know. It's interesting that Disney Plus is doing a lot of these because we're getting the Muppets Halloween special this year, and it just seems like they're trying to find new ways to like reintroduce some characters or introduce new characters and then take off from there. But Disney usually makes good decisions there, so we shall see what happens. All right, let's take a break. All right, we're back. So we are moving on to the next story here. The Color Purple is being made into a musical film, and it has found its leads that I am here for, let me tell you that. The Hollywood Reporter is reporting that Corey Hawkins from In the Heights and Oscar winner Her have been cast in the upcoming movie musical adaptation of The Color Purple. The director of Beyonce's Black is King, Blitz Bazawule, but how do you think we pronounce that? Bazawule, is set to direct. The film is going to be based on the 1982 novel that follows the experiences of an African-American woman in the South. This is a great production. I'm so excited to see how it translates again to the big screen, because wasn't there one with Oprah and such?
So here's where I need to talk to you then, because I've only seen the movie The Color Purple, directed by a notable African-American hero, Steven Spielberg, and it involved like Oprah, Whoopi Goldberg was the lead, and Danny Glover was the male lead. But here's what I have to ask you is this is The Color Purple, the musical that was on Broadway. It's based on that movie? Because I was wondering how the hell you make a musical out of that movie, because it is a bleak movie.
No. The original book, I believe, is from 1972.
Oh, okay.
So the musical is based on the book. The movie is based on the musical, but without music. And now this is based on the book again.
Okay, but
probably with the music.
Are they similar stories though?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, very cool.
Yeah.
So I will assume then, and once again, haven't seen the musical portion, but the Corey Hawkins character is a rather dark character, villainous, if you will, and so he's the Danny Glover character, and
that's
that's a great casting. That is like, I mean, that casting is the best. That is so good. He's got that vulnerability with like he can show a bit of an evil side. Ooh, I love that. Now, when it comes to Her, I don't know much about her acting chops. I can assume good stuff, but it's a musical, so let's focus on the musical chops, and she's got those without a doubt. So all in all, great casting. I'm like looking forward to it. The Hawkins casting is the one I'm most excited for, but both of them will be pretty solid. I'm still a little bit pissed off at Her for stealing the Oscar from Husavik. I'm trying to be okay with it. I'm trying. Maybe I'll forgive her after this.
Let me tell you a fun story real quick, that during the Gallica's Dorian TV Toast, which is their TV awards this past weekend, Eurovision won campiest TV show. And I originally thought it was about the movie. And I was like, oh, shit. They're talking about Eurovision itself.
The actual Eurovision.
The actual Eurovision.
I was, as an American, as a dumb American, I was just as confused for a moment. I was like, what?
I do want to give a shout out to that now that I mentioned it, though. Gallica's TV, Dorian Awards TV Toast was actually a really great event. It was pre-recorded, but it's streaming on Here TV as well as Planet Out on YouTube for free. It's a 2-hour event, but you can, of course, fast forward to what you're interested in. Some of the winners were Big Mouth. Love Victor won Best Unsung Show. There's a number of great presenters that were there. Nick Kroll was there to accept for Big Mouth. He had some great things to say. And one thing that they did really well was they asked questions about the themes of the show, but inclusivity and representation and all of that after each win. And it was really just a really neat direction for them to take an award show. I absolutely enjoyed it. So I highly recommend that, not just because I'm a member of the Critics Association, but because it just was really cool to watch. And it's nice to see people that you don't always think about championing diversity and inclusion doing so and being recognized for it, which I think is just as important as the act itself. So there's my spiel on that one.
Very good.
All right, let's get into this story, which you're pumped about.
Listen, I think it's going to be just manage expectations, but also be very excited.
Dennis Rodman is crazy. And Dennis Rodman had a book that I once bought when I was younger, and my parents got mad at me because it was really weird. But anyway, Dennis Rodman spent a weekend, I believe it was, right, in the middle of the 1998 finals, NBA Finals in Vegas, and it was quite the weekend that I actually don't know much about. I think I did at one point, but I can't remember it. Anyway, there was a push for the rights to this story that is being titled 48 Hours in Vegas. Lionsgate has taken this, and Lord and Miller are producing it, which is my favorite part of this story. But Dennis Rodman, if you're not familiar with him, he is an eccentric man. And it is a little insane, but I believe that this story gained a little bit more traction in modern day circles once The Last Dance came out with Michael Jordan, because I think it was alluded to or discussed a little bit in there. But yeah, Sean, take it away.
There's an air of mystery to this generation of it now, because it was on The Last Dance. It was an absolutely insane moment where they're just like, yep, during the finals, like he was pretty much given permission to go, like to just like clear his head or like mental health or something like that for like 48 hours to go to. Well, he was given 48 hours off. He went to Vegas. That was so, he just disappears, and it was very difficult to extract him. And this is the big myth: was Carmen Electra with him in the apartment where they tried to get him? And it was like not a lavish apartment at all. It was like no bed frame or like no bed frame. Excuse me, no like bed box or anything. The mattress was on the floor, and they like tried to get him out of that apartment. And it will be very interesting how they juggle this, because it's obviously like nutty. It's obviously insane. The idea of this is like, oh yeah, I'm definitely seeing this movie right away. It'll be a tricky one to make. It'll be tricky to handle like his possible mental health issues that he has at that time, and all of the other problems there, while also making sure that this is the most hysterical thing ever, because it probably is. Like, it's just wild. So like those two aspects just are going to be like very. I love the idea. I'm so in on it.
Who do they get to play him?
Oh Jesus Christ! Oh my God, that's a curveball of a question.
You know who I thought of right away?
Go.
I'm trying to remember that. Kingsley Ben-Adir is who came to mind. Kingsley Ben-Adir, or I don't know if I'm willing to say this one, but Leslie Odom Jr. Think about it. This is clearly going off of looks.
I honestly, and like past looks, Kingsley Ben-Adir does kind of work. Like he actually really does kind of work. I could see I'm trying to just imagine Rodman like talking and like moving around, and I think Kingsley Ben-Adir has it. Mine was because we just talked about him, and that's how my brain works, is Kelvin Harrison Jr. But I don't know if he's tall enough. I'm looking a bit tight, and I know Kingsley Ben-Adir is tall. So that would be the one to probably go with. Man,
that would be quite the resume. Played Obama once. And now
Malcolm X.
Dennis Rodman. Oh my God. Let me break some news to you that's just reported, because I think you'll just enjoy who's involved in this upcoming horror feature from Neon. It's called Cuckoo. And it's added the following: John Malkovich.
Okay. Alrighty. Yep.
Gemma Chan.
Okay.
Hunter Schafer from Euphoria.
Oh, yeah.
And Sophia Boutella from Atomic Blonde, if you saw that.
Yes.
But they're not really saying much about what this film is. But anytime John Malkovich is in a horror film,
I don't even remember John Malkovich in a horror film, but that sounds like it would be. Whew.
It is something.
I'm in Malkovich in horror. That's like, I'll take that.
All right. For when we have crazy agendas, I am introducing a new section I call Quick Hits. You would think it has rules. It doesn't, because I know we're going to get off on tangents on some of them. But if we don't have much to say about it, we're just going to move through. And I think some of these, there's not much to say. Number 1. Jungle Cruise 2 is happening. The director is returning, as is the co-writer of the original, who will be writing the new script, Dwayne Johnson, who doesn't want to go by Dwayne The Rock Johnson anymore, I was informed, as well as Emily Blunt are returning for the film. Go.
I have an idea that Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt will be going through a very difficult journey during this movie. They will be bitten by a black widow spider, and they'll end up getting scarlet fever. And therefore, they have to paddle down the river trying to survive.
I hate you. I hate you. Is this because of my Scarlett Johansson joke?
It 100% is. Are you kidding me? Since you've done that, I've been doing nothing but thinking of puns.
I have to say that I had a lot of fun making that Scarlett Johansson image. If you watch the TikTok, I sent it to you too. The image of her with the hat and the mustache.
The image, yeah.
The evilest villain ever. And just to be clear, I fully support Scarlett Johansson in this, but just from Disney's eyes.
Yeah, this is to piss off Disney.
This is to piss off Disney, which is always great when you're trying to get content from them and cover it. Speaking of Disney, The Return of the Rocketeer is the sequel to The Rocketeer that is heading to Disney+. I remember I saw this movie when I was younger. Can't remember a thing about it, but probably going to rewatch it on Disney+. Sean?
I don't know what any of this means.
All right. The new Paranormal Activity film, which we discussed about a month ago, is actually heading to Paramount Plus before Halloween, or in time for Halloween, and we'll have a making of documentary along with it. I'm actually kind of interested in that making of documentary because these are all made for real cheap. But this is the reimagining of Paranormal Activity / a reboot to try to loop in new fans. And I love the series, so I'm excited for this. Sean?
Oh, you foolish boy. You foolish boy. You know what the documentary to make Paranormal Activity is going to be like? It's going to be another Paranormal Activity. It's going to be the sequel within the sequel. It's going to be like the horror of trying to make it and stuff like that.
That would be really cool, actually.
I got to be honest. If they don't do that, I'm going to be pissed.
That would be really cool. But it sounds like Paramount Plus is really big on like continuing this franchise probably for their streamer, which I don't think is a bad idea. I think that's actually a good franchise to grab for it. However, the only thing that upsets me is I do believe that horror films need to be seen in theaters, as I always say. But there you go. Speaking of horror films not going to theaters, Netflix has acquired the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre film, which picks up years after the events of the original as a direct sequel. Sean?
I never saw I saw Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens years after the sequel. I thought the sequels to that already happened with Texas Chainsaw Massacre did that. So this is just
they're Halloweening it.
They're Halloweening it, but even Halloween like jumped over all the sequels at least, and like kind of did that. But like this seems maybe that's the same thing. Yeah, okay, I'm in.
I'm into it. I mean, I like the series, and it's funny. Like even though the the sequels and the remakes and all that sometimes aren't the best, I always see them anyway because I'm like, all right, let's see if they can crack the code for a new one to bring it into today.
Yeah, because they remade it in around like 2007 or something like that. It was I remember it was something like that, and it worked. I think people enjoyed them. There
was one before that because I vividly remember being in my old bedroom in high school. So there's that. Next story, shall we? Ready?
Hey, this is rapid fire.
Yeah, I just lost my train of thought. The new No Time to Die trailer makes it clear that this is Daniel Craig's last outing. I have to say that this trailer, did you watch it before I say this?
I did, yeah.
I think this is the best trailer they've released for it.
Yes.
And it gets me excited.
The second one, which was released like 8 years ago, was also like pretty solid, but this was the absolute best trailer they had. I think it's definitely clear that Daniel Craig, it's his last outing, considering the fact that like a few years before he was cast in this final movie, he said, "I'd rather kill myself than play Bond." So I think I got a feeling he's got one more. This is his last one in the chamber.
And I'm glad that they're embracing it instead of us like having to like think like, oh, what's going on? So now you're wondering how they're going to transition to the next person. There's also been rumors for years that they were going to introduce the new Bond in this film. And that's why we haven't heard anything about who the next Bond would be. Again, not again, but on the flip side, the other thought was let Daniel Craig finish out and then we'll announce it. But I think Daniel Craig doesn't give a shit either way. He's like, get that new person in.
Just make sure there's someone new before I leave.
Yeah.
No, I think the big thing is like there was the big rumor that like this could possibly be the first time they ever kill a James Bond. I don't think they'll go that far. That would be very interesting if they did that. Then there was the whole thing where there is, I don't remember the actress's name, but there is a black woman being cast as another 00, and Fox News only lost their collective minds, saying you can't have like a black woman be James Bond. It's like you can do whatever you want, Jamie Bond, bring it on. But turns out she's just another 00 agent. She's not going to be James Bond, but still she's in this movie. It makes you wonder, do they replace? What's going on? Things like that.
I have to bring this up. And speaking of Fox News, did you hear the shit they said today?
God.
The line.
I usually get it a few days later by horse.
I'm trying to find the absolute the quote on here, but essentially it was like it's hot girl summer and the Taliban are taking full advantage or something. Like it was so distasteful.
Those two things don't work together.
It was so fucking terrible. But two people that do work well together are Chris Evans and Scarlett Johansson, and they'll be starring together in the new Apple film Ghosted, though we don't know anything about the plot, but it is written by the Deadpool writers.
Oh, it's the Deadpool writers. That's a fun one.
Yeah.
Evans loves his Apple, doesn't he? He did this. He did the thing where his what was it called? Where his kid was a killer.
Defending Jacob,
yes.
Which is reportedly what he was filming when they filmed the cameo for Free Guy.
love that happened. I really love the idea of this. I think these two, you could say these two work well together in the Avengers. They were in a movie together before they were both Avengers, and I can't remember the name of it, but it was a lovely movie. The Nanny Diaries.
Was it the Nanny Diaries?
I think so.
Did you review that?
It was like I needed a nanny when that movie came out. I don't recall it that well. I do remember the two of them and liking them, and then everyone went nuts because they're like, "Yeah, they're both Avengers too." And I can't remember which came first, but yeah.
I'm into it. I'm excited to see what this is. Ghosted would lead us to believe it's something about like people not showing up on dates and stuff like that, or it's something with online dating or whatever. So I'm excited.
Then they don't show up because they die and become ghosts. I think I just won $1 million.
From who?
Apple? I don't know. Like billions to Coda. Give me some money. God damn.
Okay, yeah. Give you the money for that idea, or give Coda the money for that great film it is.
Okay, Coda deserves more money. Fair.
And that is actually our last story. Because we talked about the other one. Can I share something that happened today? Because I kind of already told you about this, but I want to share it with the audience here as a preview of things to come. I had the incredible honor of interviewing Bassam Tariq today. Bassam Tariq has a movie called Mogul Mowgli coming out this week. It's been on the docket to come out for a while, but of course got pushed back with the pandemic and everything. Fantastic movie with Riz Ahmed. Please check it out. It's in limited theaters. We were talking about that, and of course I had to ask about the rumors that he was going to be directing Blade. It had never been fully confirmed. Deadline was hearing from sources that he was in talks to direct it, and other reports had said that Marvel had their eyes on him. Before I even got to the question, which I was expecting he would not answer, he mentioned, this isn't a direct quote, but he said, "And now that I'm diving into Blade," and I was like, oh. So then later on, I asked him if he could say anything about that. He alluded to Marvel having snipers outside of his window, which was hilarious and exactly what I expected. But he does dive into a little bit more of a talk about not only his work with the writer and Mahershala Ali to get things going, but also some other research that he's doing, which I think is really interesting. So I hope to have that interview up tomorrow. I'll also release it as a pod later this week so that people can hear it. But the important piece there, aside from the Blade information, is that he really dives into a little bit about why Mogul Mowgli is so important to him, as well as Riz Ahmed, who helped write it. They worked together to create this film. And it really is a great exploration of culture, but also sort of following your own path when, family and influences may not be in full support of that, but then also challenges that erupt in life and learning to love yourself and overcome hating yourself. So it's a solid movie. I highly recommend it. A lot of people will draw similarities, I should say, to Sound of Metal, because it's another musical film and stuff like that. But it is very different than that in a lot of ways. But similar themes in terms of dealing with something that's inflicted on you. But the cultural aspect of this is really something different. It was great hearing about his background and Bassam Tariq's approach to his films. So definitely check it out. Really just a great, fun interview. And, sometimes you do interviews and you're like, well, that was fine. But I left this one thinking like, man, I want to get a beer with this guy because he just seems so cool. And just someone that I would want to pick his brain, put it that way. So check that out. That's coming soon.
That's awesome, man. I love the idea of that. I can't wait to see the film too.
Yeah,
Just
it's
see this
really
guy's
good.
style.
And it's a unique style, and he talks about that a little bit too with approaching. Mogul Mowgli was his first feature debut. Everything else he had done was a documentary.
Oh, Oh, that's what you were mentioning with him. Yeah, he loves doing documentaries. Yeah.
Yep. So it's really interesting. We talk about that a little bit about the approach, and you'll see that like with the way that Mogul Mowgli not only is shot, but a lot of the fact that it's based on true or personal stories and experiences. It kind of has a documentary feel in some ways. And I'm really excited to see that different approach enter into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, similar to Chloe Zhao's approach to Eternals. So, and even Shang-Chi, which gets us into top new releases this week. Shang-Chi is the big one that comes out on Friday in theaters. Cinderella, which I'll be watching shortly, comes out in theaters. On Amazon Prime Video, not in the theaters.
Doesn't come out in theaters.
Amazon Prime Video, probably will love it. Sean will give it a C. Mogul Mowgli, like I said, comes out in limited theaters, and We Need to Do Something comes out in limited theaters. So that's what's happening. Yes, Sean, can I help you?
I'm just trying to defend myself a little bit. Then I realized, I probably would give Cinderella. I'm going to wait to see it.
They've been really pushing it and doing a lot of marketing on social media. And it's the music has been really catching me. And I'm like, loving it. Uh-oh, what happened?
I'm just realizing there might be a movie I think it's this Friday, that I'm really excited to see. I want to see if it's out. Is the movie Worth coming out?
Oh, yes, you're right. Worth is coming out on Friday on Netflix.
Okay,
and that is the September 11th story, just about like the Victims Compensation Fund, right?
Yeah,
it's getting incredible reviews.
It's got incredible reviews. I saw the trailer and it just like absolutely floored me. This sounds like something that's just an impossible task. That'll be something I'm going to watch on a Friday night.
I will tell you that I forgot about that film until when I was going through to see if there was any last minute news. I saw a review for it and I was like, oh crap, I forgot to request a screener of it. So I just requested a screener at the beginning of this podcast. So we'll see how that works. And adding in some more of the team here who can make note of the request. So she'll be getting it.
There you go.
But So other than that, Sean, anything else to look forward to? What's going on in life?
Oh boy, just some great movies. I'll be seeing Shang-Chi probably on Thursday, so look out for that review. Friday, probably watch Worth, and then I'm off for a wedding this Labor Day weekend.
Oof, fun stuff.
And it's right in my own backyard of 4 hours away, Lake George.
Oh, jeez. Weren't you just at Lake George?
Yes. I was, Joe.
All right. Consistency.
No, it'll be a lot of fun. It's actually it's one of my cousins that I grew up with from like the beginning. So just it'll be a very emotional, very fun time. I don't know,
from the beginning.
Sometimes you meet up with a cousin halfway through your life and it's like, you're my cousin. I'm like, I don't give a shit.
Oh my God. Yes, I'm with you. I understand. Then there's me who totally forgot it was Labor Day weekend. And I was having lunch with a coworker. I'm like, oh wait, we're off on Monday.
I keep doing that still.
It always catches me off guard. I think not having summers is because I used to work in higher ed Well, no, what am I saying? I always have worked in higher ed. I don't know. I'm used to like school and stuff, like because I was in school, like college and grad school and all that shit. So I'm always like thrown off by not having a summer, but whatever.
Yeah, we'll get there.
It really didn't make much sense what I just said, but we'll roll with it.
Yeah,
Sean,
I let it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'm tired for some reason. You have exhausted me tonight. You've exhausted me. I am now going to be a little tired for Cinderella.
Oh no! What will you do?
I don't know. I'm predicting I'm really gonna like this movie.
I just realized something. I didn't realize it because I haven't seen any trailers of it or anything like that, and I realized it based on like some of the internet videos going around. Is James Corden a mouse in this?
Yes, that's the only thing that I'm really upset about. Did you see the video where they stopped traffic?
I saw what you did with that.
Oh, yeah. Not now, James Corden. I have to poop. I'd be so pissed.
Oh my god.
I think I don't know why they cast him. I mean, I guess he's fun for these quirky roles and stuff, but
he's not though. It's very tricky. We granted I haven't seen the movie, but like he's always getting decried in all of these. And you think like some casting directors would be like, "Oh, nobody's really liking him in these roles. Like, let's not put him here." But instead, yeah.
Part of me, I was thinking about this after The Prom came out. I wonder if they're always going for like a Josh Gad type, and then they just settle on him because they don't have the budget.
That actually might be it,
right? Because I could see Josh Gad in this role too, but
they have a similar thing to them, and that's not just like shape, but like, there's something else with their personality that's like that.
Josh Gad's a much better actor, though.
Yes,
much better. All right. Anyway, see you later, Sean. Bye. As always, thanks for listening. You can follow both Joe and Sean on Instagram at Guy at the Movies and Math Teacher Movies. New episodes of the Guy at the Movies podcast with Joe and Sean are available every Wednesday morning, wherever you get your podcasts. Also, be on the lookout for special spoiler pods, where we dive deep into the latest film releases. If you like what you hear, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. See you next time.